Just our company overview. We work with primarily veterinarians and dentists who want to acquire, who want to buy, and who want to sell their practice. All facets of those transitions. We partner with you. We're kind of invested in your practice. You can ask us any question. We may not know the answer, but we'll get it for you. So we help with startup consulting, acquisitions, tax planning, compliance, accounting, QuickBooks setup, which seemingly, based on what you hear on the internet, it's so easy to use, and then when you hit day one, it's really hard to use, if you've never used it before. Myself, 28 years as a CPA. My partner Alan is 41 years. I was primarily a vet CPA. Alan was primarily a dental CPA. Very two similar industries. Physician model is very different from vets. Dentists are almost the exact same business model. What's your growth strategy? Do you have one? A lot of people don't. It's not written. The Yale class of 1950 was asked at graduation, do you have a written plan for your life? Most didn't. They went back 50 years later at their reunion and asked the ones that did have a plan what happened. I think they were 97% more successful, that 3%, than the other 97%. So what you find is you need written goals, and it's a lot easier to achieve them. People can't understand what's in your brain. You can think that you want a marketing plan, a strategic plan, a financing plan, but until it's in writing, it's really not going to happen. Right now, there's a lot of technology that can help you grow. You know, in every industry, law, accounting, veterinary medicine, dental medicine, there are tools out there that help you grow. Some are very valuable, others may not apply to your practice. A lot of people talk about taxes. I'm a tax person. I'm a CPA. I've done taxes my whole life, essentially. They're not that important in making your growth strategy. I never think about taxes first. I think about, is it the right strategy first? And then maybe 6 or 7 down on the list is taxes. Some people make a purchasing decision. I have a veterinary client that bought a truck on December 31st because he was told by a friend, I'll say friend, wasn't a CPA friend, wasn't me, that he could save a tremendous amount of taxes by buying that vehicle. Was it appropriate for him? No. Did his practice need it? No. Did he still have to outlay that cash to get that tax savings? Yes. Tax savings aren't free. They cost something. You have to understand that every single pet owner that comes to your practice has a different need. Their dog or cat or bird or pocket pet has a different need. And a lot of times we don't see that. I'll let you talk to my wife sometimes about her needs for our dogs, which she thinks that our vet doesn't understand, and she tells him. Growth and your growth strategy should be a normal part of your business, not something you aspire to do or that you're going to do. It should just be there. You should have your growth strategy as part of your everyday walking into work strategy. This is how you plan your growth strategy as part of your working life. You want to adopt a CEO standing. My wife looked at my presentation today and saw next to my name, managing member. She said, "It sounds hokey. You should be the CEO." I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to be the CEO." I put CEO after my name, not on the opening slide, you'll see. But CEO means that you are a leader, a manager, a visionary. I've worked for numerous CEOs in my time, both in corporate accounting and public accounting. And they had this aura about them. They knew what to do. They may not have, but they exuded that aura. They know what to do. They know how to grow. They know how to transition the practice from a pure compliance practice to a consulting practice, or from a pure wellness practice or sick animal practice to a rehab practice, to a specialty practice or a specialty focused practice. but it gives you, that CEO moniker gives you a little more credibility with your peers, your subordinates, the staff that work for you, and with yourself. I was reading about the former CEO of Southwest Airlines. He said that he found out everything good that was happening in his company, and he tried to do more of it. Everything that was bad, he just blew it off. He said, you know what? Let's not even try and fix it. Just let's stop doing the bad things. Let's not try and make those processes better. And he was successful. I don't like particularly Southwest Airlines because I don't like the cattle call when you get your row assignment to stand in line. But other than that, it's worked pretty successfully. You want to develop your strategic growth plan. Growing my own practice, I've been to a lot of seminars, online webinars and in-person seminars, and you learn one bit of information from these speakers. So that may be the only thing you've learned the whole hour and a half. One person said to me that you don't want to find every client and accept them. You want to find the right client. And it kind of struck a chord with me that, you know, we all want a warm body to walk in the chair and hand us a check or give us their Visa card for providing medical services to their animals. But what if you had a perfect client that walked in? Wouldn't you want 1,000 of those? They listened to you, you never had to chase them for payment, and they always came back and did whatever you said. And they spoke highly about your practice and referred tons of other pet owners to your practice. Wouldn't you want a lot more of them versus the person that you have to argue with over compliance recommendations and they may see you once a year, if that? Kind of a good growth strategy. A niche practice. We have some veterinarians that they love oncology. They're not AVMA certified, but they love oncology. They go to all the conferences, and that's their focus and that's their passion, and it drives a large percentage of the revenue in their practice. You can do that with anything. You'll see rehab practices, surgical practices. The focus. It's hard to be all things to all people, which is why if you specialize or have a particular focus, it can lend to getting more revenue generation and more growth. Build the perfect system. We all want to build the perfect system, whether it works or not. That's where the struggle comes. But that's what we should aspire to. And the system is a documented system. We struggle with this all the time. Our billing system we recently changed, and I had Emily didn't know that she was supposed to send some billing information to another person who does the accounting work. If it was written down and documented initially by me as the CEO, we wouldn't have had a problem. Thankfully, it was caught quickly. Staff-driven. The staff actually should start writing your procedures. We have a new practice that the owner, before he sold, had never done a physical inventory. Didn't know how to use his practice management software inventory system, and nobody in the practice was responsible for keeping track of inventory. They ordered it, but they didn't keep track of it. Glaring problem that the staff member responsible for ordering should have written out a whole documentation package. Why we order, when we order, how we order, who we talk to, and when we reorder all the time something, is it the right thing to order? Should we be talking to another vendor? The biggest thing that I can tell you, and if you never do this, shame on you, dry run days. I was a paramedic for 12 years for the city of Worcester, and we saw a lot of big things that happened. The little town that I live in, it was a volunteer ambulance, and I was one of 2 paramedics in that town, and it was a big event because once a year there was a train crossing through the town. Every single person wanted to practice having a big train crash and what they would do, and it was a mass casualty incident. And people would talk about it for weeks. You know, I got to do this and I got to do that. But the other 99% of the calls that happened across the course of the year were nothing like that train crash. And most people saw a train crash in 1986. That was the last time a train came through town and hit a car. So they were preparing for something when I left in 2000 that hadn't happened in 14 years. But those calls that you do every day, and I say calls as an emergency call, as a routine sick call. I mean, those 10 things that dogs come in for, you should practice. You should practice from the time that animal walks in the door until the time they check out and leave and they're in their car. Most people don't. If you ask your receptionist what's going on now with this patient, she couldn't probably tell you. She couldn't tell you where it is. You see, most hospitals have a dry erase board that has the status of every single patient in the hospital, whether they're for an emergency, a recall, surgery, ICU. They know what the status of every patient is. Everybody in your hospital should kind of know what everybody would be doing in a particular treatment plan and where they are in the process. You need to practice, even if you have to pay people overtime on a Saturday afternoon, for 3 or 4 hours. Here's the 10 things that dogs are going to come in for. Let's practice a dry run from start to finish and let everybody watch what's going on in the whole process so they know. Most hospitals don't shut down to do that. At the end of the people's work hours, they go home, and the next day they come in and it's on-the-job training. Things happen from the time they start work until the time they leave, but they never get to step back and see what everybody else is doing. It's eye-opening. Your internal growth plan, pet owner referrals. I see some people that have referral mechanisms, $10 off your next visit if you refer a friend. It's online, they promote it in their waiting room. Other people don't, they just kind of rely on word of mouth. New services as a part of your growth plan. It's always good to look at new services. Sometimes people jump too quickly, spend the money, don't give enough training to staff, and the service kind of like sits by the wayside. You kind of have to think things through and have that written plan. And the written plan should include what happens if things don't go right? What's our plan B or plan C? Staff on 24/7. I like this one because most staff that work for a company, an owner, an operating entity, are not invested in the practice. They should be 24/7 marketers. If they're at the grocery store and somebody's talking about their dog, they should jump in and say, well, I work at so-and-so. Why don't you come and see us? Here's my card. Even if they're not the veterinarian, if they're the kennel person, they should be doing that. Like I said, that right patient, look at your client base and see who you want to keep in your practice. Most people don't do that. You know, I've struggled with this myself. Those, I can't call them owners, they're clients. You know, are they the right people for us? Do we work well together? Do they listen to us? Do they make us rush through and do things to get them done instead of done properly? Those are all things that you need to evaluate too. The external plan, the web, blogging, social media. Emily is our Director of Marketing and Social Media and has been fantastic to get us new clients that we've never even met. And nobody has referred them to us. They found us from the internet. Vendor alliances. Your vendors, believe it or not, are one of your best spy satellites on your competition. They can tell you what your vendors are, what your competition are doing down the street, what people in different states are doing, what people in the industry are doing. Use them, use them, use them. You know, most people think vendors are pizza at lunch and learns, and they're gone in an hour. They're not. You should be drawing every bit of information out of them that you can. So tell them to be why after you leave here. Media and press. We have some clients that pester local newspaper editors. I have a story for you. Dog got hit by a car. Within an hour, these people had contacted Channel 4, 5, 7, the Boston Globe, the Worcester Telegraph, They had news people up there, you know, that afternoon, filming the surgery, filming the dog walking. I mean, you can't beat that free press. And this person is very hands-off marketing, doesn't do any marketing, but in this one instance it works, so everybody can do this. It's free. He didn't pay a dime except for the phone calls. Your chief executive optimist. When people are acquiring a practice or they're starting up a practice, they're like, what if I fail? You know, I still owe all that money to Bank of America, for example. And I tell them, you're not going to fail. We're being optimistic about this. And they don't. Because once you're an owner and you're invested and you've signed your house over too as part of the guarantee of the loan, you're going to do everything possible to fill your hospital with paying patients. So to be that CEO, and everybody can be a CEO. You don't have to. You can be a CEO of your job. You can be a CEO of your practice if you're an owner. Or you can aspire to be a CEO. What creates value? What do we do well? What don't we do well? Like the Southwest Airlines CEO said. These are all questions you need to ask. What trends? I talk about rehab. Everybody wants to have a rehab division or rehab hospital. Hey, should you jump on that? Maybe. It might be right for you. But you'd better do a lot of investigating. CR and DR. Should I upgrade? I don't know. Let's talk about it. I mean, it's easy when you have a loan and you're starting fresh. Go for DR if you can find a cheaper one, if it's not going to break your budget. Or if you can skimp on other things and put the money into DR. Is that the right strategy for everybody? No. It could be for you. Those are CEO level decisions. People don't know they're making those decisions, but those are CEO level decisions. Sustainability. This is what I think about all the time. Is our competition about to crush us? Is somebody going to merge? Is a consolidator going to come in and buy the practice 3 miles down the street, which I've seen? We had a client that was going to purchase a hospital as a referral to their emergency center. One of the large consolidators, unbeknownst to him, had already negotiated a deal, and he's like, why aren't they returning my phone calls? He said, maybe they're not allowed to. And then it clicked, it went public that they had been purchased. There goes that referral source for his emergency center. So as a CEO, you have to have plan B. How are we going to generate more referrals? Do we have a talented workforce? Definitely need a talented workforce. I always tell people, hire somebody smarter than yourself. Don't like to think that, but that's what you should do. You don't want to have to do all the thinking. You want to get the best of all the ideas, sift them, and get the ones that rise to the top that'll help your practice grow. Can you handle growth? You ever remember that UPS commercial they played at the Super Bowl where a new startup gets all these online orders? And then all of a sudden you see it go to 99,000 orders, and there's 3 people in the company. They don't know how they're going to fill that. That could happen. That'd be a good thing to happen. Delegation. I see this all the time. When I worked for UMass Medical Center in Worcester, and an ER physician who used to be a paramedic and rose up to be an ER physician, he was starting an IV on a patient once. We said, what are you doing that for? A nurse can do it. He said, I just wanted to prove to myself I still have it. But there were other patients waiting for him while he's starting an IV that somebody else could have been doing. And I see this in vet hospitals all the time. The vet will say, I'll just do it. Is that smart delegation? No. You really need to delegate to someone of a lower standing in the hospital, lower certification that can handle the same amount of skill. Your comfort zone. It's hard to be a CEO. You may not be comfortable assuming all these tasks and responsibilities, but you should do it. It's hard, but it's rewarding. CEO leadership, it's a continual process. You have to get your mission, your values, and your vision all down on paper. We're working on it. You know, it's hard to do all these things. It's very hard. You need to be engaged, enthusiastic, and energized. We all get run down, but you're the last person that people look to be enthusiastic and positive. So if that pet owner is gnawing at you, and that case is gnawing at you, you still got to have the happy demeanor. You can complain all you want when they leave, but your staff has to know that you're invested in the practice, you're invested in the patients. I always say, Sean McVeigh, if you've ever heard him speak, always talks about toxic behavior from your staff. You've got to address that immediately. We've had some people that worked at practices where I went, they didn't know who I was. I walked into the front desk, and the receptionist, I asked her a question. I said, wow, what's that care credit? You know what she said? It's some kind of pet insurance. Oh my God. Got on my cell phone, called the owner. I said, you got to come out here right now. He was down on the second floor. I said, you got to talk to her, because if she says that to me, I know what to do. What if she says it to an owner that wanted to potentially sign up for care credit and was told by somebody that pet insurance is bad? Oh, I'm not going to sign up for care credit, it's pet insurance. It starts a whole bad wheel turning. You've got to have the right staff and trained staff. Like I said, that dry runs. I mean, you have to go out and watch them check in a pet owner and their pet. Every single thing that they do. Most people don't. They kind of assume it's being done, unless you sat there and trained them from day one. Things can migrate to a bad position very quickly. Collaboration, cooperation, I always say collegiality. I'll show you a practice later that's collegial. People love working there. Accountable. Basically, as a CEO, everything falls on your plate if it goes wrong. Everybody else takes the credit when it goes right. That's what I found. But you want to make people accountable. Own up to their mistakes. In human medicine, there's a whole big thing, a discussion, they call it, about apologizing. Attorneys will say, do not apologize. Acknowledge that something happened and that it was bad, but don't say it was your fault. I'm not sure. Even in veterinary medicine, the veterinary attorneys that I know say, it's fraught with danger to apologize. Celebrate. You got to celebrate achievements. We have a practice that's throwing a Halloween party at a local hotel for their client base. And I have to wear a costume. You want to celebrate those achievements, personal and professional. Somebody graduates from a tech program. Somebody gets additional specialized training in ultrasound. It's a 2 or 3 day program. Celebrate it. So here's your CEO leadership management paradigm. As the CEO, you're at the top. Even though you're a veterinarian and you're entrenched in operations, you kind of have to set yourself above and have a top-down approach. You have to review things. You have to manage things. In a perfect world, such as in human medicine, which isn't perfect, there's always a CEO MD, a leader, who's hands-off. The chair of the department may walk into with his coat on and touch a few patients, but then wait for the attendings to do everything. You have to do the actual operations of medicine, and you have to do strategic planning, patient care management, safety measures, clinical outcomes, which a lot of veterinary hospitals don't measure. You have to manage the operation key performance indicators as well as the financial indicators. It's a big responsibility. What are your growth strategies? How can you do that as a CEO? You need to educate your staff or re-educate them. You have to re-engineer how jobs are done. If you do that dry run through, you can see where things are bottlenecked, where things are being done inappropriately, not enough resources are allocated to those jobs. If your receptionist is trying to check somebody out, explain a prescription because the tech's busy, notify care credit that they want an increase in their care credit account, a dog peed on the front floor in front of the reception area, they need more help. You need to help pet owners distinguish your practice not just on price or price shopping, but on the value, and price comes second. Hopefully you can explain your value and what you're doing is valuable, and they can hopefully negate the impact of price on that decision. Doesn't happen all the time, but the ones that distinguish value from price are those owners you want, and you want more of them. You want to look at your A and B owners. Remember the warm body theory? I just want everybody who pays. Your A owners, if somebody has spent $10,000 at your hospital, somebody had 2 dogs with 2 ACL surgeries, foreign object removal, they come in every 6 months, every single recommendation that you make they do, you want them to bring their friends. Those are your A owners. The B owners are people that pretty much spend a lot of money at your practice, they're compliant with your recommendations, you want a lot of them. The people that are barely clients, they come in, they get the bare minimum, they don't listen, those are the C owners. They still drive revenue in your practice, but you'd rather have A and B owners. Your external revenue strategies, getting new revenue, new growth outside of the practice. Your website, search engine optimization, just like we did, to get patients that or owners that we would never see. Facebook, Twitter, wellness plans, and I'll talk about wellness plans in a minute. Rehab, cold lasers, track referrals. Who sends you referrals? You have to thank them. Uniforms and clothing. My daughter was on a sailing team, and other sailing teams from highly financed universities would essentially pay their students to wear their clothing 24 hours a day.
That big. That sounds
Well, it's marketing. It's marketing. These big schools say, if I'm going to pay your education, you're going to wear our clothing. I mean, your employees, if you gave them a clothing allowance for them to purchase your clothing and wore it 24/7, so they're essentially getting compensated for it, that could help. You don't know. A wrapped vehicle, it's $4,000. We have some clients that spend $30,000 in advertising and they can't tell us how well it was, how well it performed. I know how much a wrapped vehicle costs, and I probably know how much revenue it's going to generate. A pet ambulance. Had a client just buy a 7.3-liter diesel ambulance with 6 billion miles on it, but it's still going to have their practice name on it. And they're going to do critical care transport from other hospitals, overnight care, to their facility and return them in the morning. Dog park sponsors. Everybody wants to sponsor a dog park. It helps. One of your tools. The red X, what don't you want to do? You don't want to cut all expenses by 10%. You'll see this in dentistry. All the consultants say you have to cut your expenses by 10%. Be more profitable. That's really not more profitable. That's not a growth strategy. You can only cut your expenses so far before your staff complains or staff leaves, and good staff can leave. You don't have the right tools, your inventory's at bare bones. You don't want to do that. My pet peeve with the veterinary industry is everybody's brainwashed, kind of like in dentistry, by the national studies that say you have to exceed this benchmark or this average. I don't want anybody to be average. It shouldn't be your goal to be average. We have a Dunkin' Donuts chain as a client, the owners as clients, and they say, we exceed every benchmark. Who are we going to benchmark ourselves against? Same for you. You should do internal benchmarking. Here, how are we doing compared to yesterday, last week, last year, last month? Those are more relevant. There's no practice out there that's like yours. You have dissimilar staffing, you have dissimilar services. Funny, Emily and I were talking this morning. Emily said she'd probably go there to get gas. It could backfire. It could backfire. So you can tell people what you want to do, but your staff may have another idea of your growth strategy. Don't change that sign because I want to proclaim that we're the best gas station and we'll give volume discounts and we'll do this, but if they have no understanding of your growth plan, and that one little small piece of that growth plan is change that sign to say this, it may not happen and it may backfire. Wellness plans. There's a whole lot of stuff going on about wellness plans. And I wrote a blog a couple of weeks ago about a new client that wants to institute wellness plans and was going to give them away as part of his initial marketing strategy to somebody that adopted dogs from a local shelter. They bond to the practice. After a year, they probably wouldn't leave if they were A or B clients. If you read most common literature, veterinary economics, DVM News Magazine, there's a lot of pros and cons. There's a lot of consultants that say you can do it, but beware. You know, they can cover all ranges. You can add in different services. You can have them pay by credit card, and there's actually a couple companies out there that will manage the credit card payments for you. Not the plan provider. The plan provider is totally separate. But they'll chase the client if the client changes their Visa number to another Visa number. Or if they change their bank account, they'll be responsible for chasing the client for that information. There's a lot of assumptions on pricing, discounts. Everybody says beware of the discounts. What are the negatives? You have to change the way you operate. People may leave after they get all the service, but before that 1 year period is over. It could happen. Pet owners are frustrated. You can't compare plans. I've tried to compare plans. You can design them however way you want. There's so many variations. There's so many ways to discount. You can assign, I was on one site last night where you can design the payment. There are 50 choices for payments. I mean, it's a good idea, but you really have to know what you want and who you want to attract.
How many of your practices are doing it?
Well, some refuse, and we have one that has 500 patients on a plan and expect by the end of 2013 to have 1,000. Carl Salzider out in Oregon, veterinary attorney, at his practices, it sounds the way Carl says it that almost everybody is on a wellness plan. He's promoted it for years, one of the early adopters. He loves it. It's a recurring source of revenue every month. There aren't slow periods for wellness plans because you're collecting a set fee every single month. If you're just starting out, that might be a great thing. You don't have to worry, am I going to make my loan payment this month because visits have stopped. Visits won't stop on a wellness plan. Social media. I don't understand how it works. I understand this much. Emily understands a lot more than I do. But we all do keyword searches. I'll go into Google and I'll say veterinary CPA or veterinary accountant. I kind of look. I used to look all the time, and it really wasn't improving a lot. So I said, boy, we got to talk to our website company, and it never came to fruition. We never did anything. But the things that I did kind of intrinsically were, I looked for keywords, I looked what my competitors would come up on. I wanted to optimize my site and put in meta tags, whatever those are, but I knew you had to have them. Keywords, link building, I knew you got better rankings on Google if somebody linked to you and you linked to them. If you have videos, recently everybody said you have to have videos, so we're having video. The whys and wherefores. Everybody knows you have to have social media penetration. Some people do it well, some people don't do it well. We're trying. There's not a lot of CPAs on Facebook that blog. There's a lot more that blog now than there used to be. But what are you doing? What is your competition doing? We have some vet practices, they don't even have email or a website. The owner may have a Gmail account or a Verizon account, and that's it. That's how you contact them. Others have the whole package, depending on who they go to. So what do you have to do? And we're trying to do some or all of these: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And Facebook is not your personal Facebook, it's a business Facebook account, so it's strictly business. Google Trends, I got on Google Trends last night, typed in some keywords and see how many times those pop up. People are searching for those terms. Link building, like I said, we wrote our first blog a couple weeks ago. We're going to try and do it more regularly. Press releases, so that veterinarian that went out and did his own press release to all these news stations and media. Isn't this engaging and exciting on a Facebook page or website? This is Atlas Vet, they're in DC. Startup practice. 6 months before they were open, they had a Facebook site. Every day they would post pictures. We're painting this green wall. We're painting this red wall. Here's the cabinets being installed. There was a media buzz. That's them at the White House with their logo. I like to say Matt and Chris are media hounds in a good way. People like working there. You call there, it's so energetic and happy. I'd like to work there. But their environment is young, urban, fresh, energetic. It's in basically downtown DC. 200 new patients a month. Pretty good. Here's our results. Veterinary CPA before, in the middle of the night when I was bored and getting on Google. We're at the 3rd page. It was like so depressing. Now we're number 2 or 3, depending on if it's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Dental CPA New England. There's 3 other big competitors, much larger than our firm. We were number 4, now we're number 2. Just from search engine optimization and some links and pictures and Facebook, it all works. Veterinary financial planning, we're on the 2nd page, now we're number 2. But we have a dedicated person that does this for you. Are you going to have a dedicated person that does that for you? This might be something as a CEO level decision, you may have to outsource. People will say, I can't afford a good website. Oh my God, it's so much money. Can you afford not to have a good website? Some of our clients that are great marketers, I look at their website and I'm like, wow, how are you getting clients with this website? You really need to have somebody take an objective, fresh look at it. Get a couple fresh looks before you make a decision. But I would outsource it, kind of like I did, because I know enough to design a website or do SEO. You know, you could fit it in a thimble. But I know what's important. New service lines and equipment. You know, everybody wants to have new equipment. The new laser, new underwater treadmill, hydrotherapy, CR, something to improve their delivery of medical care. Is it right? It seems like every trade show I'm at, I'm stuck next to a laser. So, you know, I've listened to the spiels. I think it's good stuff. One of the women said, Mark, you know, we've been standing here for 3 days. How do you like a laser treatment? Do you have anything that hurts? I said, my carpal tunnel, for some strange reason, hurts. I think it's from pointing and talking and grabbing my cell phone all day, and my hips hurt, my back hurts. Well, let's give you a treatment. I felt like I was 16 again. It wore off. So the next day I asked for another treatment. But I did some numbers, and you can go on a lot of sites and find out how much incremental revenue or profit it's going to drive to you. You do 8 surgeries a week. I was plugging in numbers from some smaller practices. 8 surgeries a week, 2 dental cleanings, 12 ortho or derm cases, so arthritis, etc. Hip dysplasia. You charge $10 a treatment. After you pay for the machine, and that's like a $12,000 to $14,000 machine, a lot are $18,000, $24,000. You have $14,200 in incremental revenue. If you charge $15 a treatment, and everybody tells you to sell a treatment plan, so it could be 10 treatments. Will clients go for that? Maybe. It depends. The A clients probably will buy it, that treatment plan. They may not. It depends how you sell it. And you hear all these miracle stories of dogs that couldn't walk and all of a sudden they're chasing a tennis ball down the driveway. I don't know if those are all true, but it could happen. But that's one of your CEO evaluation skills that you have to determine, is it right for my practice? Hydrotherapy. This was on a website for their hydrotherapy practice. A 5-minute swim in the hydrotherapy pool is the equivalent of a 5-mile run for your dog. I said, yeah, right. I swim 20 minutes 3 days a week. If I ever had to run 5 miles, I would keel over. My golden retriever is afraid of water. My new puppy is not. He blows bubbles in his water for minutes on end. But my 7-year-old golden, Ben, is deathly afraid of water and had 2 ACL repairs. Would I put him in a hydrotherapy pool? He would freak out. If these things are money makers, why on sites do they have a $35 to $350 package price on fun swims? It means people aren't using them. That's it. Any questions? And I'll be available later on and during the break if you'd like to ask questions. You can always call, email.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So, and I've wondered about, it actually relates to dentistry and veterinary medicine. So it's kind of interesting that you've done both, because I've noticed the parallel, but I feel like I have a friend that's a dentist. One of the big differences, so we bought our practice and now we flat out own it with a large outlay for goodwill. And that's the big difference that I can see between dentistry and veterinary medicine, is that the dentists don't pay nearly what we pay for goodwill. What's your feeling into the future about that goodwill? Is that going to remain? I mean, what's the difference between dentists and veterinarians, that veterinarians pay, you know, $600,000 for goodwill and a dentist pays $100,000?
Well, there are so many more dentists that the prices have been driven down purely economically too. I got lost going to a dentist client. I couldn't find them, which means dental patients can't find them if I can't find them. They're my client. Drove down the block. There were 4 dental practices within a quarter mile of their office. It's huge saturation. And you see that in college locales. So BU Dental School, Harvard Dental School, Tufts Dental School. I mean, Tufts Veterinary School. If there was another veterinary school up here, you'd be seeing practices worth a lot less because there'd be so much competition. And part of the valuation process is, what's the competition? I mean, you're buying a future earning stream. Most dental practices, general dental practice has been hit 30%, and they're trying to slowly come up. Specialty practices haven't been that hurt. They're starting to get hurt now because general dentists are trying to keep those skills in-house. So if somebody needs a root canal, will they refer it out to an endodontist or keep it and get $1,650 to $3,000?
So into the future with the corporate moving in on our field, do you predict that it's, I mean, just with your basic knowledge, that we're going to get more saturated, or do you think it's going to, is our goodwill going to be there when we retire in 20 years?
People have been saying the death of small business for years. I I mean, you still see hardware stores where Walmart has popped up. The big box stores and the big veterinary consolidators haven't killed small business. The consolidators can pay a lot more because they'll cut out the administrative component of your practice and ship it to Nebraska.